It is Wednesday, my dudes, and you are watching The Sweat presented by DraftKings. Jesse Cofield, Emerson Latzia, damn good show lined up for you because Gojo will do his typical Wednesday thing where he invades the sweat. We'll look back on the Major League Baseball trade deadline.
What happened?
Okay, let's dive into the Wyndham Championship, final stop on the PGA Tour before the FedEx Cup playoffs.
But first,
what do you say?
How exciting is it that the NFL Week 1 DFS salaries have been released? So take a look over here. We got the highest salaries for Week 1 that you are looking at right now, okay? So some pricey dudes here. Christian McCaffrey, 8,700, my man. 2 running backs in there. 3 running backs in there. Kind of surprising considering
nobody likes them anymore.
Nobody likes running backs anymore. All right, let's bring in our NFL panel, DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich and Pierce Dietrich. So, guys, we're just going to roll through some of these and ask you if you're going to be chasing or fading this player in their Week 1 matchup at this price point. So, we start with Lamar Jackson. $8,000 Week 1 versus Houston. Jeff, a lot of offseason drama with this man, but he did get paid.
Yeah, off-season drama, but the drama's gone. I mean, there hasn't been any drama in the preseason for the Ravens. The only thing that's coming out of Ravens camp is Action Jackson. I mean, Todd Monken obviously instilling a pass-heavy offense. They got Zay Flowers in. They got Odell Beckham in. All the talk is positive. All the talk here is that the Ravens are going to be chucking the ball. This is easily the best wide receiver core that they've had entering the year. And, for DFS purposes, yeah, you're going to want some exposure here. The Ravens are minus 9.5. I mean, there's some concerns. How is Houston going to keep this game competitive, I guess? They do have some good boundary corners, Derek Stingley, but there's a lot of options here on Baltimore. And I think at the very least, this is not a spot where we need to overthink things. Even if this is a blowout, the Ravens, it's Week 1 and a new offense. They're going to want to put the hammer down here. I would want some exposure to Lamar. And the other factor is I mentioned all these wide receivers. You can get real creative with a $4,000 Zay Flowers to pair with an expensive quarterback like Lamar Jackson. Yeah, Lamar is in a good spot for Week 1. I mean, I think that this one could turn into a bit of a blowout at some point if the Ravens offense clicks. And obviously there's a wide range of outcomes there, but the ceiling here is immense with Lamar Jackson Week 1.
All right, Pierce, Week 1, $8K. Do you like him at this price range in this matchup?
I'm going to fade, and I can't believe Jeff is listening to training camp talk and preseason talk. It's all fake news. Every team is, we look great. Everything's going well. You can't buy into any of this stuff. You got a new offensive coordinator, a new offensive system. They're going to get limited reps in preseason games. So you've got all these new receivers. Lamar's now going to pass a lot more. They're transitioning from more of a run-heavy team to a pass-heavy team with just not very many reps in the preseason. I'm not buying it. I know the matchup is easy, but with Lamar Jackson, the whole appeal was his on the ground attack. I don't know if we're going to get that moving forward. You're spending all this money on Lamar. Why would you risk him running? I think there's just too many question marks, too many uncertain situations going into Week 1. I'm going to fade with this kind of price tag.
All right, Pierce, what about at running back Christian McCaffrey at Pittsburgh, price tag $8,700. It's not a perfect matchup. Steelers were quite good, right, on the ground last year and project to be so again this year.
Yeah, I'll fade here as well. There's usually plenty of value. By the time we get through preseason, there's going to be injuries. We're going to see roster shakeups, and you can find plenty of good value at the mid-tier for running back and even cheap running backs. So you don't really need to spend that much. And as you mentioned, Pittsburgh's defense, when healthy, could be one of the best defenses in football. San Francisco has a very diverse offense. Their attack comes from all different angles. Yeah, McCaffrey within a week picked up this offense last year and was a big part of it. But we don't know exactly what they're going to do. And at this price tag, I don't want that kind of uncertainty. Sure, he could burn me and have a monster week against Pittsburgh, but the matchup isn't that great. It's pretty expensive. There's a couple question marks in San Francisco. I just don't know if I want to go there. Yeah, he's got the offseason to really learn more of the playbook and mesh with this offense, but I just don't want to spend this price. If I'm spending at receiver.
Jeff, are you willing to spend this much money on Christian McCaffrey? Top of the running back barrel at $8,700.
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, just like the NFL owners, I'm going to fade these high-priced running backs. Just shout out to running backs. They do great work, but I mean, at 8,700, we just have so many options to choose from underneath McCaffrey. There's no Elijah Mitchell in Cleveland with Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb's going to get a monster workload right off the bat there. There's no Deebo Samuel to worry about on teams like that, where, McCaffrey's going to get in the red zone. We don't even know if he's going to be there because maybe they'll give the ball to Deebo. Maybe they'll give the ball to Elijah Mitchell. And then we haven't even talked about really isn't a good matchup against Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin at home plays close games, likes to play grinded out styles himself on offense, with the Matt Canada offense. So no, I think it's actually a pretty terrible matchup for Christian McCaffrey in a lot of ways, especially at 8,700 is the most high priced. You've got names underneath him. I mentioned Chubb, but what about Travis Etienne at 6,900? Similar type of player, explosive, but he just comes a lot cheaper as well. We're going to have more situations pop up too as training camp arises. So McCaffrey's a pretty big fade for me. Like Pierce said, if he burns us, he burns us. But I mean, there are other players who could easily produce similar ceilings weeks than McCaffrey here. Far cheaper for week one. Running back's a spot where you got to look for value.
All right, maybe wide receivers where you want to pay up here,
Yeah.
Jeff. Justin Jefferson, most expensive option here. 8,800 taking on the Bucks. He's coming off a breakout season, 128 receptions for 1,809 yards, 8 touchdowns. Do you like him in this spot? Is he worth the price tag?
And Jeff, I think he's going number one overall in most best ball drafts
Yeah,
too.
he is.
Yeah, and he should be. I do like him here. I mean, I love this matchup. I mean, Tampa Bay versus Minnesota. Look, I'm fading the Vikings this year, and quite frankly, I think Tampa Bay is a very, very interesting underdog, upset target for week one. But at the same time, that's fine. If we're going to get a close game where Tampa's ahead, guess what? That's real good for Justin Jefferson for fantasy purposes as well. 8,800, this is too cheap for Justin Jefferson right off the top. We've got a Tampa Bay team who, maybe they're going to play a little bit more pace down this year. They're probably not going to throw the ball 50 times a game or whatever they did last year with Brady, but I don't expect that offense to necessarily revert to being like a run-first offense. They don't have a hammer in the backfield. They have Rachaad White, who's a pass-catching back. That's really where he shines. They've talked a lot about using empty backfield sets. They're still going to play fast. This game is going to be fast-paced. And I like both sides of this game. I think if you're looking at Justin Jefferson, you should be looking to anchor around him. But Chris Godwin on the other side, a full year removed now from an ACL injury. Yeah, it's Baker Mayfield. It's a little scary. But you know what? Minnesota stinks at covering wide receivers. The secondary is not really going to be that much different this year. I think this is going to be a wide open game. The wide receivers on both sides of the ball have lots of appeal. And yes, you should be paying up for wide receiver, and you should be starting with Justin Jefferson, especially now we've got some injury news on Cooper Kupp that doesn't look great. Who knows what Tyreek Hill is going to do against the Chargers, but I really like Jefferson. I think you're going to see him be highly owned, but for good reason in week one.
All right, Pierce, eat the chalk with Justin Jefferson. What do you think?
Yeah, you got to eat the chalk and chase here. Jefferson's in a great spot. We don't know what the running game is going to look like for Minnesota, and they were already pretty much a pass-heavy, aggressive offense to begin with. And I think Jefferson's just going to have a monster season again. He could lead the league in receptions and yards and maybe get a couple more touchdowns. And Tampa's, their cornerbacks and Dean and Carlton Davis are pretty good, but this guy's unstoppable. And then on top of that, Tampa's defense tends to funnel more towards the pass. They have a good run defense, and Minnesota doesn't really want to run the ball. You could see some high volume going towards Jefferson in week one.
All right, Pierce Dietrich, with Travis Kelce not on the main slate, Mark Andrews, Mr. Mandrews, that's the top dog at tight end. You want to chase or fade that $6,200 salary?
I'll fade it at this price, and I don't know if I'm going to be that bullish on Mark Andrews this season. You look at some of his best years, that was when Baltimore didn't have any receivers, when Baltimore's running backs were injured. Well, the running backs are healthy. You've got healthy receivers. The Georgia offensive coordinator is coming in with a new passing scheme, but we don't know if that's going to really be good or bad for Mark Andrews. There's just a lot more mouths to feed on this offense now, so I don't think Andrews is going to get 15 to 20 targets like he had in previous seasons. So at this price, I think you got to wait for the price to come down a little bit before we go back to Andrews.
All right, Jeff Ulrich. So there's Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, George Kittle, all of whom have proven capable of 40-point explosions here.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, of the top three plays here. I mean, I do prefer just getting up to Mark Andrews. Obviously, no Travis Kelce on the main slate for week one, but Mark Andrews at 6,200, I think is, again, Lamar Jackson is obviously expensive, but I think Andrews looks a little bit underpriced for this slate. I don't have the same concerns. I still think he's going to operate as the de facto wide receiver one here. They brought in nice wide receiver options, but whereas Lamar Jackson's just been a magnet towards the middle of the field throughout his career, he's really not been the greatest, outside the numbers thrower, but you get him inside the numbers and throwing to a big target like Mark Andrews on the run. I mean, it's just a really, really good connection they have. I wouldn't be afraid of him here. I think if you're really going overweight on Lamar Jackson, you need to get some exposure to Mark Andrews as well. And you can mix in a lower owned play, like I said, like Zay Flowers, but I would prefer Andrews over the top three options. I do think that there's, kind of like running back, there's really good value plays down there. Like Greg Dulcich is a player in the 4K range. I could see exploding week one against the Raiders. But Andrews to me is a fine pay up option. Again, it really just depends on how you want to play the Ravens offense for week one. We've talked about them a lot. If you're bullish on it, you're going to need exposure to Andrews and Lamar Jackson, because if they do explode, I mean, that is the pairing that is going to have the most likelihood to end week one as the top stack.
All right, let's talk DST now, fellas. Jeff,
wow.
Ravens versus Houston, week one matchup. What do you think?
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. You've got a rookie head coach. You've got a rookie quarterback. You've got a veteran, a veteran head coach on the other side of just a veteran defensive line on the other side. But at the same time, this is DST and this is daily fantasy. And, just generally, you just don't pay up for defenses. I mean, I like the Ravens in this spot. And I think that if you're going to use the Ravens DST, it's going to be a good leverage play, potentially off the higher owned, plays, because I think the Ravens will carry a lot of ownership week one. So one way to counteract that is to obviously not play Lamar Jackson, not play Mark Andrews, but play the Ravens DST instead. That means that if the Ravens offense busts and the Ravens DST ends up with a couple scores, you're going to fly up leaderboards real quick. So I like them from a leverage perspective, but in general, I would be looking cheaper. I mean, this is DST. It's so variable. It's the most variable position in fantasy football, obviously, regardless of what format you're playing. Look for cheaper options down the board. I mean, we've got teams. We got the Browns at 2,600. We've got the Titans going up against Derek Carr at 2,600. Good defensive lines there can cause a lot of havoc. I'll be looking cheap as always, but again, throwing the Ravens DST in for a couple different lineups, especially where you're fading the offense on the other side, it does make some sense for week one.
Pierce, what do you think? Ravens DST, $4,000, obviously most expensive one on the board.
Yeah, I'll fade that. And the price doesn't always matter. And really what we're chasing here are just fantasy points. We don't want the best defense in the best spot. We're just trying to predict, and there's a lot of variance here, who's going to score touchdowns, who's going to get the most turnovers. The Ravens could absolutely stomp Houston but not score a lot of fantasy points. But I don't really want to beat up on Houston that much. I mean, what if Stroud is a solid quarterback coming out of the gate? He's got a decent running back. I kind of like these receivers in Nico Collins and Mechie and the veteran in Woods. If the offensive line can come together and play halfway decent, then maybe Houston won't be a complete pushover, and they might be able to put some points on the board. So let's not bury Houston yet. And I just don't see the Ravens scoring a bunch of fantasy points from the defensive side.
Pierce, you are free to go. Jeff, hang out because we'll talk some Wyndham Championship with you coming up. We also have Lee Hodges will be joining the program. I talked to him yesterday. Yeah, winner of last weekend's 3M Open there in Minnesota. Dalvin Cook, can't find a salary for him on DraftKings because currently he's not even on a team. Where's the best fit for him? A lot of people talking about the Jets, considering he just visited with the Jets. Gojo joins the show right after this break.
All right, guys, check out the Gojo Show every weekday to hear Mike Golick Jr. chop it up about the hottest topics across sports and pop culture. He has some special guests. It's very cool. You can grab the show wherever you listen to your favorite pods. That means Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app. I don't know where else you can find podcasts, but wherever they can be found, that is where it is. And he's also here.
Yeah.
In the flesh. Well, in the digital flesh.
Oh my God, woman.
The flesh of our times.
Yes, the flesh of our times. Ugh. So gross.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing good, guys. Good morning. Are you calling your reposts on the X app now reposts, or are they still retweets for you guys?
No, dude.
We actually got in a conversation about this yesterday with Jared Carabas, and he is insisting on calling them X's. Like when he puts out a tweet, he says he's got a good X. Instead of tweet, he's saying X.
Yeah.
Wow, so Jared owns a Tesla.
Yeah,
Probably.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, that's got to be the only reason I can think of to support Elon's like, I guess with the X thing, it's really big divorced dad energy.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to like support that necessarily. Plus, I'm a creature of habit. I've made the comparison. It's like when the Catholic Church did that Second Vatican II and they changed, and also with you to and with your
They
spirit
changed
and
all
that
the
stuff in
lyrics
Mass.
to church. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'm going to operate on the old lyrics. Sorry, Father, you can spit that new gospel for the masses, but
Right.
I'm going to be over here mumbling it to myself because I'm too stubborn to learn new things.
Absolutely. I mean, I still refer to it as Twitter tweets, retweets, everything, because what are we calling them? X's?
I mean,
it doesn't make sense.
Well, listen.
Yeah.
With the post and repost thing, I tweeted out an absolute banger this morning, Mike. It's up to 10 likes. I said, Twitter is now the post office.
That's a terrible X.
Hey.
Ooh.
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know about that.
At Emerson. Okay, producer Tom says we're going to X that one out. Get it out of here.
Okay.
Grow up.
Okay, well, let's talk drama in the NFL.
Okay.
Because there was no shortage of it this weekend, okay? Sean Payton going after Nathaniel Hackett.
Taking
rest
a
of the Broncos
huge dump on him.
regime from last season. Then Aaron Rodgers responding, being like, don't talk to my coach like that.
He like channeled his inner Will Smith.
Yeah.
He was like, you keep my coach's name out of your mouth.
Yeah, which was kind of a hysterically strong response from
Yeah.
him. On the pod, Gojo, you and Senior had some like differing opinions on this topic, but do you feel like this kind of like back and forth, this drama is like good for, we're having a little bit of a like this league moment.
I love it.
Yeah, it's deeply NBA of the NFL. And listen, Sean Payton said what a lot of people have said about the 2022 Broncos and the way that season went. But he said it about one of his peers, and Nathaniel Hackett got up and addressed it the other day and did a weird long metaphor about coaches all living in a glass house together and everybody's got keys and all these different things. But the bottom line is we usually don't see this kind of action from coach to coach because success has always been so hard to come by in this league. And if you're a coach at all, usually you've been around long enough to be fired from somewhere or have something not go your way. Even look at the best guys in the league. Kyle Shanahan's one of the best coaches we have, and he's still haunted by 28-3 at every turn. And so for Sean Payton to do that's a reminder of his station in life as a coach. He's a made man. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a Super Bowl champion. All these things that we expect him to at one day be. And he got a little bit too froggy. But the win for all of us who are in the content and watching businesses, now week 5 just got another added bit of drama. We'll all be waiting for see what the handshake looks like at the end. We'll obviously be waiting to see the extra animosity on the field in that game, because the one thing became clear at One Jets Drive or whatever their address is, this seemed to resonate with everybody. Everybody seemed to, in some way, shape, or form, be bristled by the comments there. And a little bit of genuine animosity amongst teams is sometimes hard to come by in today's league. And so we'll take the benefit of that, even if we don't agree with how we got here.
Yeah, a lot of people describing it as bizarre. A lot of people describing Dalvin Cook's visit with the Jets as bizarre as well. Some think maybe he's using New York as leverage here because he's already said, yeah, I'm a perfect fit for the Dolphins. So where do you think Dalvin Cook ends up, and what do you think his fit would be like there with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers?
Listen, I think the fit's going to be fine either way. Like, if you want to go down to Miami, the benefit you would have there is being part of a bit of a deeper backfield. And with the way that offense operates, knowing you're not going to be grinding into the dirt each and every down as much of a necessity. But if you're Dalvin Cook, and you potentially still want to be a feature guy, you've got a chance for that, especially at the start of the season while Breece Hall's coming back off last year's injury, to be that bridge program. Yes, Breece is their future, and if he comes back and can play anything like he did the first 6 games of last year, that's going to end up being the case, especially as we know, younger, cheaper, all the things that come with that. But for Dalvin, I still think, listen, you look back at Nathaniel Hackett and the offense that him and Aaron Rodgers were a part of in Green Bay that did make use of Aaron Jones and some really great backs and some things like that, even when he was there. They'd find ways to use him, I think, in a way that would make a ton of sense. So I don't think there's a lot of losing here. And quite honestly, either way, he's going to end up in one of the most competitive divisions in football and be a huge asset to either team.
All right, let's talk about some really big news that
This
came
is
out.
the biggest news
I mean,
of the NFL offseason.
that the NFL will simulcast the Super Bowl on Nickelodeon for a more kid-centric approach. Are you surprised that this is happening? I mean, it seems like an awesome move, but kind of wild that the NFL is like allowing the Super Bowl to be simulcast.
Yeah, I think the more and more we go along, not to get too, inside baseball with the TV number stuff, but total eyeballs seems to be the metric much more than just your rating on one channel. The NFL's always going to have 98 of the top 100 rated shows of any given year like we've seen traditionally. But what they've seen is, hey, you know what? People are really into this wild card game that we usually do on Nickelodeon. Everyone loves the slime. You've got all these different guys that have been able to make that broadcast appealing to parents and kids, parents who grew up watching Nickelodeon and now are passing that on to their kids. But as much as anything, guys, this is the NFL understanding, hey, we got to continue to find ways to reach young fans because they hear all the stuff about maybe fewer kids playing football or more kids being into different things and not as into sports. And they're trying to combat that by seeing if they can meet them where they're at or where they think they're at. And this is just another step in that process as far as I'm concerned.
I just watched the Nickelodeon broadcast.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching it because as I tweeted yesterday, Mike, slime cannons raining down on Trevor Lawrence as he finds Calvin Ridley for the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. That is going to be an absolute electric environment.
Can't wait for that for you.
It's going to be a dream. I mean, listen, as much as we always talk about end-of-season awards and the MVP debate and who's going to win it in the Super Bowl, Offensive Player of the Year, the MVP, the Nickelodeon most valuable player from that broadcast, has really become a coveted item on the mantles of many NFL players, I'd imagine. And so, yeah, for Trevor to have a chance to not only lock up the Super Bowl MVP, but the MVP also would probably make his life. I want that for him, too.
Yeah, that would be beautiful.
Almost had to name that award after Mike White after his performance a couple seasons ago there with the Jets, oddly enough. Okay, so let's talk some World Cup before you take off, Mike, because it's been an underwhelming performance down under for the U.S. women's national team. Did we just overhype this group here? Because for a team that's just been so historically dominant in this tournament, performances throughout this year's edition have been, as I mentioned, very underwhelming here.
And there's been a lot of criticism. I mean, Carly Lloyd was like, you guys don't have the passion to win.
Yeah, because they were kind of celebrating after that draw the other night, the other morning, whatever part of the country you're in, and it just didn't feel right, Mike.
Yeah, I've never really subscribed to all that. I had a buddy who played the Chargers with Phillip Rivers, and after a loss one time, this always stuck with me. Said Phillip Rivers told him, I don't need you guys to show me how mad you are right now after this loss. I need you to come back to work and do the things that we know we need to do to improve right now, because they didn't lose, right? They could have. It was close. It was harrowing. The post saved them. All these things that we know, but they didn't lose. They get to continue to move on right now. They're enjoying that moment after the game with fans or family members or things like that. I'm not going to use that as an indictment of their passion. Listen, if Carly Lloyd knows something that I don't know about what's going on behind closed doors, and there's a very real possibility that she does, then I'll take those words there. But Emerson, I think what you guys mentioned about victims of our own success or standard is kind of what Carly's talking about. The standard is, hey, you're not just excited about getting out of group play, but I think we've seen a confluence of events, right? You've got a team with 14 newcomers on it that was also very injured coming into this World Cup. Didn't have a lot of time on the pitch together with some of the group that would be making the trip there. Some of the fitness was in question because of those injuries. And we've just seen other countries have gotten better. The women went out there with the idea that, hey, their play was going to be this standard bearer for the rest of the world to now meet. And it seems that some countries have taken that challenge very seriously. And so all of those things come together have made this a lot rockier road than most of us are used to. Because I don't know about you guys, I don't have a lot of teams that I root for that have been this consistently good.
Yep.
I like getting to talk my mess about these teams and know that they're going to constantly back it up. So I had a dream last night that we lost to Sweden already. That's how shaken and rattled I am to my core. So I need this to turn around quickly. That's for sure.
What's crazy is like they're on to the next round, knockout round, stage of 16, whatever you want to call it, and their 3 matches at this tournament represents the worst group stage performance in World Cup history for the U.S. women's national team. And no team has ever won the competition having picked up so few points in the preliminary stage.
So we're just hoping they can figure it out before, what is it, Thursday, Friday?
I don't know. It's been really tough. Did you get up at, well, Mike, you're out in Cali, so that was like midnight for you. Did you watch it the other night?
Yeah, I was on the East Coast for that one. So
Oh,
that
you
was
were.
3 a.m., and that was a big pass for your boy. I wish them well. I figured they would take care of it. I woke up a little unnerved when I saw 0-0 as the final score. So that's just a reminder that we're going to all have to make sacrifices if we want to do this. We're going to have to get up. We're going to have to make sure they feel our support at whatever ungodly hour they're at in Auckland.
Okay, maybe. Finally, Gojo Rose time. Who gets this week's honors?
This week's honor is going to Mike Vrabel, who actually seriously entertained from a question from a reporter in the scrum after practice about how many 5-year-olds it would take to tackle Derrick Henry. Now, as we talked about it today, I'm not sure if maybe this was built off of, hey, the Super Bowl is going to be on Nickelodeon. A lot of kids, maybe I'll come up with the funny answer to the question there. But shout out to Mike Vrabel, who ended up having to build the parameters for this argument and then gave an answer and said he thinks 35 5-year-olds could take down Derrick Henry. I think he's wrong. I think you need at least 50 because they're not coordinated enough. They're certainly not tough enough, and they're definitely not going to be able to work together well enough to actually use their overwhelming amount of numbers to take down Derrick Henry. But they're below knee level. But the average 5-year-old, I think I looked this up, is like 46 inches tall, like 43 pounds. They're going to be too low for him to lower his shoulder on. You can only stiff arm one at a time. So I think eventually with 50, he could get tripped up.
That's a great Gojo Rose of the week because I laughed out loud when I read when he was like, how many would die in the process?
Yeah.
It was like, how many would we lose in the process?
I mean, 35 is way too low.
Way too low. Way too low. We can all agree on that.
Yeah, because my niece and nephew, I think back when they were around that age, I said, you guys couldn't do anything with your lives.
Well, you'd need 50 because at least 5 or 6 of them would be like chasing a butterfly across the field.
That's
right.
Yeah.
They're going to be picking their noses or looking at rocks or doing whatever 5-year-old kids do. So, you've got to count on distraction for a few. It's going to be like old school war where you just got to send a few people into the cannon fire and they're going to have to absorb that while the rest just dive at his ankles.
Yep.
I mean, it's a good interview question. Now they just got to ask, like, how many Colts it would take to tackle him.
Yeah, a lot.
Still probably the same amount.
Right? Too many men on the field. Thanks, Mike Golick Jr. We appreciate it, man. Good seeing you. We love you. Mean it. We're going to dive into the MLB trade deadline, the fallout from that, who our panel thinks, or at least which team our panel thinks improved the most after yesterday. Okay, August, the month of August, we are inside you, Major League Baseball at this point. You know what that means?
What?
It means many things, but in this segment, we will be referencing the coming and going of the MLB trade deadline, moved to August 1st from the traditional July 31st, like, this time around. So a lot of dudes on the move, Scherzer, Verlander, some of the biggest ones. We talked a lot about that yesterday during our trade deadline special with Jared Carabas on the Tuesday takeover of the Sweat. Let's dive into the fallout of said deadline right now with our panel, DraftKings contributors Gary and Thorne, Nick Fryer, Tanner Kern. Some winners and losers you guys are tasked to tell us about
so let's
right
start
now.
with
That makes sense.
which team we think improved the most. Gary, and who gets your vote?
I mean, I think the easy answer would just be to say the Astros.
Yeah.
They got Justin Verlander. That's really nice. But if we dig a little deeper, I think the Miami Marlins did a fantastic job yesterday. Because the trade deadline is not a time of the year where you're going to fix all of your problems. I think you have to just pick a problem and hope to solve it. And if you're the Marlins going into yesterday, it was power. They had a 134 isolated power on the season. That is the second lowest mark in all of baseball. They needed to be better at generating extra base hits. So they brought in two players who are flawed, don't get me wrong, but two players who have a lot of raw power in Jake Berger and in Josh Bell. Jake Berger in particular, a really interesting guy in 2023. He's got 25 home runs, not even really playing every day for the White Sox. 99th percentile barrel rate, 92nd percentile in expected slugging percentage so far this season. Josh Bell has obviously been very up and down in his time with the Guardians and the Padres, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But again, this Marlins lineup, which was really Luis Arraez, Jorge Soler, and a bunch of nothing, does now have some danger in it. And I think that's what the Marlins needed, especially considering that they basically can just computer generate pitchers whenever they want to. So a team that really just went out and fixed a problem that they had. Got to give the Marlins some credit.
All right, Nick, which team improved the most? What do we think? Who are you rolling with?
Well, where Garion thinks it's easy to go with Houston, I think it's just as easy to go with their other team in Texas, the Rangers, because you lose Jacob deGrom this season, then you add Max Scherzer. And yes, I know he's not been the Max Scherzer of old, but I think it's going to be a good change of scenery for him. And then you add Jordan Montgomery, too, who has done well this season. This offense has been explosive, and now you go and add two arms that can go and pitch for you in the postseason and win you a game. That's huge. Adding a righty and a lefty, too, in that regard. The other team that I'm very interested by, I think they at least deserve an A for effort. I don't know about execution, is the Angels. Lucas Giolito is obviously a strong add. CJ Cron and Randall Grichuk are interesting since they're coming over from Colorado. I'm sure Grichuk is just going to do what he does because his numbers seem pretty consistent with what he did in Colorado and previous to that. But Cron went off for the Rockies, and now you go and take him out of that situation. He has a career OPS of below 50 points below what he had in Colorado the last two seasons. So I'm not sure if it's going to pan out in that regard, but I got to say they're at least going for it. I don't know if that'll work out for him, but I'm excited to see what that turns into.
All right, Tanner, who we rolling with?
Going with the Rangers here. Definitely, they went for it. Half game up on the Astros in the AL West, and they're looking to stay a half game up and definitely lengthen that lead a little bit. They lead baseball when it comes to batting, pretty much every category, batting average, OBP, and runs. But the one issue was the pitching, as Nick was attesting to there. They brought in Max Scherzer. They brought in Jordan Montgomery. Those are two guys that are going to add a lot to this rotation, which has overperformed this season too. So that's something to note there. The guys that they didn't expect a lot out of they're getting a lot out of. So I see Jordan Montgomery and Max Scherzer fitting in very well. They also brought in some secondary guys like Chris Stratton, who's going to be a good help out of the bullpen with the 1.17 whip. So very looking forward to what this Texas Rangers team is going to do now after the deadline. I don't know if it's going to be enough to stay above the Houston Astros with their move yesterday, bringing in Justin Verlander, but they're definitely giving their best effort.
Yeah, that was a hell of a day for the Astros yesterday, huh? A little no-hitter, and then also trading for Verlander again. Nick, which team had an underachieving deadline and you believe needed to do more?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Rangers are at the top of their division, and they went and made some big moves. And then you also have the Twins, who are at the top of their division, and all they ended up doing was getting rid of Jorge Lopez to Miami in exchange for Dylan Floro. I don't understand when did it become okay for teams at the top of a division not to make moves at the deadline? I understand if you're at the top of the division, you're the best team in your division, one of the best teams maybe in the league. But when you look at the Twins, if they fall out and somehow the Guardians go and scratch and claw their way back, even though they made some moves that should lead them to regress, I mean, if the Twins fall out of the first place, they're not going to make it in the wild card. So I don't understand how you don't go for it in some capacity where you make at least one decent move. And the Twins do have some good pieces on that team where they can go and continue to build. I'm blown away at how they just mailed it in, did nothing at the deadline. It's just, like, there's some other teams that are embarrassing, but the Twins, to me, is number one, the worst.
55 wins atop the AL Central. Yankees last place in the AL East, also with 55 wins. Tanner, which team
Yankees
gets?
also didn't really do anything.
Yeah, no, they did not. I think they realized it's a lost cause.
Yeah.
It's over.
Tanner, it's over, Rock. Which team gets a low mark for its trade deadline performance?
Well, going off what Nick said, I think the same goes for the Orioles. They didn't realize they were a first-place team coming into the trade deadline, and that hurt them moving forward. They added Jack Flaherty, yes, but they didn't do enough around this team, especially when it comes to pitching, to be a contender in the postseason, in my mind. They're going to rely on a bunch of young players who have not necessarily been there yet, and that's going to be a trouble spot for them. They had one of the best farm systems in baseball. They have more prospects they even think about utilizing, and they didn't send them away to add talent to hopefully make a run in the wide open American League right now. There is it's anyone's game to win in the American League. The Orioles are right up there, and the Rays have been the best team in baseball for most of the season, but the Orioles are better than them right now, and they didn't act like it at the trade deadline. I'm not saying Jack Flaherty's not good, but he doesn't really move the needle for this team. He has a 1.55 whip, and he's going to be towards the top of their rotation, which is mind-blowing. Their rotation ranks 19th in Major League Baseball right now, and Flaherty's not really going to help that. So I would have liked to see Baltimore go out, get a big-name guy, push to win the American League East, and then make a push to win the playoffs, but I just don't think that's going to happen now based on what they did at the deadline.
Gare, which team is the biggest loser after its trade deadline performance?
I mean, it's a little tough when we talk about the Orioles, and like I'll group the Reds in there as well as a team that's like overachieving right now, that has prospects to burn and could have made a big move. But, you know, look at the two pitchers who I think we could all say the two pitchers who actually moved the needle, Verlander and Scherzer. They both had really, really complex no trade clauses. Justin Verlander wasn't going to Baltimore. Max Scherzer wasn't going to Baltimore. So I almost can't blame the Orioles. I don't know what they offered for those guys, but I'm sure they put in offers, and it just came down to the fact that the players themselves have the power to say no. So it was still underwhelming, but honestly, when you have so many teams to choose from here, I mean, the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Giants, like what were the Giants doing? They got AJ Pollock. Congratulations. Is this 2017? Like, what are you trying to do? You're not that far out in the National League West. The Dodgers have never looked more susceptible than they are right now. And you go get AJ Pollock? Congratulations, guys. You're not winning the West.
All right, guys, before we let you go, going to get your favorite bet on the MLB slate today. Garion, where you rocking for your best bet?
I'm just going to take the Orioles on the money line at plus 105. Grayson Rodriguez up against Yusei Kikuchi. The Orioles have hit left-handed pitching very well this season. They are 7th in WRC plus against left-handed pitching. Grayson Rodriguez has been a different guy since getting demoted. Went down to AAA and dominated over 7 starts. He has now come up. His last 3 starts has not allowed an opponent home run. That was the real big issue at the start of this season. And just in general, Baltimore is 7-1 against the Blue Jays this season. The Blue Jays have lost 11 consecutive home games in which they have been favored against the AL East. Just pick against the Blue Jays if they're playing an AL East opponent. That is kind of what we've learned so far this season.
All right, Nick, where are you rolling?
Garion's right about the Blue Jays, by the way. They only have 1 win as home favorites against their division this season. But I'm actually going to go with the Rangers on the money line against the White Sox. Got this bet with some help from the Stats Hub on DraftKings Sportsbook, which is powered by G2G Network. There are some system options now under the MLB tab on the Stats Hub. And one that jumps out that's a B+ system play for this game, home favorites coming off a win have won 58.7% of the time this season. So that plays into the Rangers. And in 2023 matchups between non-divisional American League opponents, the favorite has won 61.4% of the time. And the Rangers have really helped with that number. They're 22-10 in that setting.
All right, Tanner, finally, best bet. What is it?
So I'm scrolling through the sports book today. I see Rays, Yankees, McClanahan versus Cole, and my automatic thought goes to the Nerfy. I look at the juice on it; it's -115. That's a great price for these two pitchers when it comes to a Nerfy. So I'm going to play that here. These are the two front runners for the American League Cy Young Award. McClanahan's 11-1 with a 3 ERA and a 1.18 WHIP. Elite strikeout ability there, so he has the ability to get out of trouble if that happens in the first inning tonight, which I don't expect against this Yankees lineup that has just been putrid. And then you look at Cole; he is the front runner for the Cy Young, 2.64 ERA with the whip right around 1. Again, elite strikeout ability out of him. This Rays offense has really taken a step back post All-Star break. They seem like they're starting to get back on track a little bit, but I think both offenses hold off in the first inning. These pitchers shine, and the Nerfy cashes.
Gentlemen, your job here is done. We are going to wrap up the show with some Wyndham Championship picks on the DFS side, sports betting side. But first, Lee Hodges hanging out with DraftKings yesterday, coming off his first career victory at the 3M Open last week in Minnesota. I caught up with him yesterday. Here's part of my conversation. Fresh off his first career PGA Tour victory, champion of the 3M Open last weekend, Lee Hodges joining the program now. What's up, man? How are you?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me, man. This is great.
Yeah, it is great to have you here. How long are you going to be riding the high of your first win?
Definitely a couple more days.
Yeah, right? Because you're not in the field this week. So what are you up to?
Yeah, no, I took a nice couple of days off. I've just been enjoying my family and being home, being in my own bed, drinking some nice red wine. And tomorrow I actually go back to work, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, I know you're from this small town in Alabama. What was it like going back home? Did you have a victory parade waiting for you?
No, I mean, I actually had some people at the airport that were waiting on me, which was super cool. I think my wife and my mom orchestrated that, but yeah, just seeing everybody. My mom and dad weren't at the tournament, so getting to see them at the airport was awesome, and getting to give them a big hug. And Savannah's family was there, getting to hug them too. So yeah, it's been awesome being home, honestly.
I mean, it was an awesome performance by you. You go wire to wire. You win by 7 strokes. That's the most of any winner on the PGA Tour in nearly 3 years here, dude. How the hell were you able to be so untouchable out there?
Yeah, just, staying aggressive. I knew my game was there. I knew I was playing well. I knew I was ball striking it super well. And my putter's been feeling really good too. So anytime you're feeling like that, it's like, you just got to get out of your own way and go let your game speak for itself. And yeah, it's the first time I've ever had it happen for 72 holes. So yeah, it was awesome. Absolutely awesome week.
And while most guys choose champagne or maybe beers to toast to their victory on the 18th green, you go with a milkshake. What's the backstory there?
Yeah, I don't know if I chose it, but Coach Sewell was there. He flew up with one of my sponsors, Bill Best, that morning, and that was super special, man. So when I was at University of Alabama, whenever we would win a golf tournament, Coach would immediately take us in the van to get milkshakes. That's kind of his thing. That's kind of his, he always says, tastes like a winner. So that's the first thing he told me when we walked out on the green. He was like, this is going to taste like a winner. So it was super special and something I'll remember forever.
All right, what flavor was it?
Strawberry. It's my favorite.
That was your favorite, and he knew that. He knew that being your coach.
I think my wife told him, actually.
All right, nice. You could buy a lot of milkshakes with the money that you pocketed with that fat paycheck. Do you have any special plans for the $1.4 million now in your bank account?
No, not at the moment. I'm not a big, frugal guy.
Yeah.
Probably just put it up for a little while, and hopefully, in the next little while, me and my wife, maybe build a house or something.
All right, that'll be nice. I know you're a huge Bama football guy too. So after you crush some milkshakes there, you receive a special phone call. So let's roll that video.
Hey, I'm with Lee. He's right here. Hold on.
Hey, Coach. How are you, bud?
Great. Congratulations.
Thank you, pal. Appreciate that, man.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Thank you, dude.
You had a great one, huh?
Yeah, no. There's not many times you win by 7. So, It was pretty fun.
I usually watch it at night. I'm rooting for you, so I found a
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate that. You guys get after, all right?
Yeah, we're getting ready to go on Players Report Wednesday and start practicing Thursday. So,
All right, perfect. Well, good luck this season, Coach. I appreciate you calling.
all right, thanks, buddy.
Thanks, man.
All right, Lee, I need you to be honest with me here. How nervous were you taking that phone call from Nick Saban?
That's the most nervous I was all week. I mean, I wish I could have that back, but no, I mean, I don't even. It was a blackout. I was so nervous. Coach Sewell just came out of nowhere. And was like, "Hey, Coach Saban wants to talk to you," and I was like, "Well," "You got to give me at least a little bit of a heads up." And it was awesome. I mean, he is in the state of Alabama, and especially being an Alabama fan, he's like a mythical creature almost. He's the greatest to ever do it. He could run for governor of this state and win by 1 million votes.
Yeah.
So it's I wish I wouldn't have called him Bud and pal, but I absolutely blacked out. And but maybe this makes us closer somehow. I don't know. So but yeah, that was absolutely awesome. But maybe you could have handled it a little different.
Yeah. Maybe you guys can become like friends on Facebook or something now. What would you do differently? What would you say to him now that you've been able to kind of chill out a little bit and think more about it?
I would just call him Coach. I would just say, thanks, Coach. I didn't know what to say, but it was super cool. He's the greatest I'm a huge Alabama fan, but I think he's the greatest coach ever in any sport, to be honest. So he's got a track record that speaks for itself, and he's a great guy. So
yeah, I mean, you forgot to ask for season tickets too.
Well, my dad has season tickets, so I get those from him.
Hey, speaking of that, what kind of SEC rivalries are there on the PGA Tour, like in these locker rooms during the season?
Yeah, right now, and since I've been out there, it's just Alabama and Georgia. There's so many Georgia guys that, man, they're tough to deal with. Sepp Straka, Chris Kirk, B. Todd, Harm, Grayson Sigg. Oh my gosh, he's the worst. And they unfortunately they've had our number the last 2 years, so they've kind of been getting after me a little bit. But no, it's great. They're all great guys. But it's fun banter back and forth.
Very cool little interview that you got to do yesterday. You did an excellent job. Now we're joined by DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich, RotoWire senior golf writer Len Hochberg. Fellas, we're going to talk Wyndham Championship, do a little preview here. So let's start with the betting side of things. Hideki right now is the favorite, plus 1,800. You got Russell Henley, Siwoo Kim, Sungjae Im sitting at plus 2,000. Jeff, you feeling any of those guys at the top?
Oh, Henley, 100%.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, we're at the Wyndham Championship. It's Sedgefield. It's a short par 70. It's short irons and it's putting. And this is Russell Henley's wheelhouse, man. I mean, shot 62, 64 here to open in 2021. I think Hideki's playing well too, and I think it's neck and neck. But I mean, get a little bit better price with Russell Henley. All his wins have come on courses like this. Sony Open. I mean, down in Mexico at Mayakoba, similar type of accuracy-driven courses. Russell Henley is first in fairway accuracy. It's all about placement off the tee here. It's not about power. Henley at plus 2,000 has been playing well. I know he missed the cut at the Open Championship, but he always misses the cut over there. He's been playing well. The approach game is there. I wouldn't have a problem with him at all. Siwoo Kim's been all over the place. Sungjae, I do not know what's going on with him. It's between Hideki and Henley, and just give me Henley. This is his kind of course.
Len, you agree between Hideki and Henley here?
Not really. No, I'm not big on Hideki this week, or Sungjae, matter of fact. I mean, Hideki is now outside the top 30 in the world, and Sungjae Im is not far behind. Neither one has been playing great. Hideki Matsuyama has 2 top 10s since the last Tour Championship last August, so 11 months now. He gets a lot of 13s, 15s, 16s because he's a great iron player, but his putting prevents any higher finishes, so I don't like him at all this week. Henley, even his iron game is a little bit off, although I do like him much better than Sungjae Im and Hideki Matsuyama. Siwoo Kim is like Mr. Wyndham now. Apologies to Webb Simpson and I guess Webb Simpson's daughter, but he finishes great here every year. Yes, he did withdraw last year, but he had 4 top 5s going back to 2016 when he won. He plays great here every year.
Yeah, very consistent. A little bit of a flip here in DFS, though, because Hideki, second highest salary behind Sung Jae's 10-8 number. A lot of guys there, gentlemen, the 9,000s, high 8,000s as well. Who's someone on the higher end of the DFS salary board, Len, who makes sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, betting, DFS, any metric, no, I don't want any part of Hideki. I don't want any part of Sung Jae Im. They're just too high priced for what they've been delivering. I think, Sam Burns is way worth a dart throw. He's $10,000, and anytime a putting contest could break out, and that's what can happen this week, you want to get a super putter, and that's what he is. But I really find a lot of the best way to go is to go into the 9s and the 8s this week and get a balanced lineup. There's not a lot I like in the 6s. I could see building a lineup going all the way down to 9,000 and starting with Siwoo Kim.
All right, Jeff, I know it's a little sportsy here, but Sam Burns, his Bermuda experience is great, man.
It is. And, Sam Burns is definitely the type of player who can pop at any time. I really don't hate it. I think, again, a lot of people are just going to be trying to take the safe route with Hideki and Henley, and using Sam Burns makes a lot of sense, as Len said. I mean, if you're looking for the lower owned dart throw up at the top, I mean, that's it. You're going to need to go low here. Sam Burns, people of getting to 20 under on any kind of easy course like this. I do like another guy, though. He's 8,800. Cameron Davis, kind of similar types of vibes. Just been gaining strokes ball striking, gained over 5 strokes ball striking in Minnesota last week. He's been a little bit all over the map this year as well, but you look at his record, he's got a lot of top 10s, and he's challenged at a lot of places. Had a career best at the PGA Championship, was really good at the Players. And for how far Cameron Davis hits the ball, he actually really, really dominates these shorter courses. He's very good at just clubbing down off the tee, letting his irons do the work. He's an absolute birdie machine, which is great for Sedgefield because that's what you're going to need. He's finished top 25 this event twice. I think Cameron Davis is a very good player to build around as well. And I actually think he brings you quite a bit of stability this week, just given how well he struck the ball last week in Minnesota.
All right, Jeff, real quick, any long shots that have your interest, whether it's betting market or DFS?
Yeah, a couple right off the bat. I mean, I like Brandon Wu, I think, for DFS at 7,200. No one's going to play him, but he actually gained a bunch of strokes ball striking last week, just did not putt well. Another guy I really like in the 7K range, Sam Ryder, who did strike the ball well last week. He went 14 under in his last 3 rounds in Minnesota. Sam Ryder was all over leaderboards at the start of the year. Like him for a long shot bet, first round leader. And then Doc Redman, another name I'll throw out, 6,800. He's starting to play well. He gained a lot of strokes on approach last week as well.
All right, Len, any long shots?
Well, I don't know if they're quite long shots, but guys who I can see in a lineup, in a balanced lineup, 8,100, Alex Smalley, just great tee to green player, played well at the Wyndham for years, even before he got good this year. He was 13th last year. 7,700, Eric Cole, 7,400, Brendan Todd. I know Jason Sobel says I'm in love with him, but maybe I am. But I think he's really great. Andrew Putnam at 7,200. And Adam Schenk at 7,400. You could build a lineup with all of these guys and stay clear of the 6,000s, which I'm not a big fan of this week.
All right, guys, about 45 seconds to go. Jeff Ulrich, your favorite to win the Wyndham Championship.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is an absolute wide open event. I'm going to go with Eric Cole, a guy we haven't mentioned yet, but I mean, a veteran type of player, mid-tier, longer shot. This is just the kind of player we've seen over the years win this event. I think Eric Cole is due. He's played well all year. Let's go with Eric Cole.
All right, Len Hochberg.
When I saw that Denny McCarthy was $8,700, that wasn't a green light special. That was get on the Autobahn and go. He's been playing well here before he became a good iron player, and no better putter than him to win a putting contest.
All right, good stuff, guys. Appreciate the time as always. That is the show. We got a 6-game slate in Madden, starting with the Rams and Browns at noon, and we will be back tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. See you then.